The summer heat in Eastwood was the kind that made the air feel heavy, like the city itself was pressing down on you. Marcus Hill walked the cracked sidewalk with his head low, the scent of fried food from the corner joint mixing with exhaust fumes and the faint tang of metal from the train tracks nearby. His steel-toe boots were scuffed, his faded work shirt stuck to his back, and his mind was a jumble of worries he didn't have time to untangle. Marcus had just finished another 10-hour shift at Clarkson Steelworks. He wasn't supposed to be working that much overtime, but the rent was due and his mama's medical bills were piling up. Life for Marcus was always a hustle. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Still, he kept his head down, believing that hard work would eventually pay off. That belief shattered the night he met Detective Roland Pike. Pike was everything Marcus wasn't. White, well-connected, and untouchable in Eastwood's power circles. He came from a family whose name was etched into building plaques and courthouse walls. Marcus first crossed paths with him at the plant when Pike showed up asking questions about a string of stolen industrial tools. "You seen anything unusual, Hill?" Pike asked, his blue eyes cold and assessing. "No, sir. I keep to my lane." Marcus kept his voice steady. Pike smirked. "That's so? You keep to your lane, but I hear you need money real bad." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation wrapped in a smirk, and Marcus felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He didn't know it then, but that conversation was the first thread in a noose Pike was quietly tying around his neck. 2 weeks later, the plant's manager called Marcus into the office. Sitting across from him was Pike, a file thick with papers in front of him. "Marcus Hill, you're under arrest for theft and possession of stolen goods," Pike said flatly. The room spun. Marcus stammered. "What? No, I didn't." "You got the right to remain silent," Pike interrupted, reading the Miranda rights like he was reciting a grocery list. They cuffed Marcus in front of his coworkers. Some looked away, others stared with pity. He caught the glance of Darren, his closest friend at the plant, who shook his head in disbelief. At the station, Marcus learned the evidence against him. Stolen steel tools found in an abandoned lot 2 blocks from his apartment, wrapped in plastic with his fingerprints on them. The truth? Marcus had never seen those tools in his life. The public defender they assigned him was overworked and underpaid. "Marcus," the lawyer sighed, "this is bad. The DA's office is pushing hard. Detective Pike's word carries weight here. Best you can do is take a plea deal." Marcus refused. "I'm not pleading to something I didn't do." That decision would cost him. The trial was a spectacle. The prosecutor painted Marcus as a desperate man drowning in debt, willing to steal to keep afloat. Pike testified, his voice calm and convincing, about how Marcus had acted nervous when questioned. When the jury came back, they didn't look at Marcus. Guilty on all counts. The sentence, 10 years in state prison. The ride to Eastwood Correctional was long, the bus windows barred, the air stale with fear and sweat. Marcus stared out at the world passing by, the kids playing ball, the corner store where he used to get sodas, the church his mama still went to every Sunday. All of it slipping further away. Prison was a different kind of heat. It clung to you, a mix of tension, noise, and the constant knowledge that one wrong look could mean a fight. Marcus kept to himself, but news traveled fast. Everyone knew Pike's name. Some inmates even said Pike had put them in there on flimsy charges. One night in the chow hall, an older inmate named Reggie leaned across the table. Word is, Pike got his own hustle. Plants evidence, takes bribes, covers for his friends. You're not the first he's buried. Marcus felt something shift inside him. Rage, yes, but also a spark of something else. Determination. If Pike had set him up, then Marcus needed proof, and proof meant survival until he could get it. For months, Marcus listened, observed, and took mental notes. Reggie introduced him to a few other inmates who'd been railroaded. Their stories were eerily similar. Planted evidence, altered reports, convenient anonymous tips that always led to arrests. One night, Reggie slid Marcus a folded piece of paper. Inside was a name, Malik Turner, a former tech guy on the outside who'd been doing time for hacking. If you can find a way to talk to him, Reggie whispered. "He might be able to help." Malik was in the library most days, quietly reading, glasses perched on his nose. It took weeks before Marcus worked up the nerve to approach him. "Malik," Marcus said quietly, "I need to know how to find something. Something buried." Malik studied him for a long moment. "You want dirt on Pike? That's dangerous business, Hill." "I don't care," Marcus said, his voice steady. "I'm not dying in here for something I didn't do." Malik leaned in, lowering his voice. "Then you better be ready for the truth. It's bigger than you think." The air in Eastwood Correctional always carried a dull hum. The clank of gates, the distant buzz of fluorescent lights, the occasional muffled shout echoing off concrete walls. Marcus had learned to read those sounds like a language. He could tell when a fight was about to break out 2 cells away, or when a guard was lingering a little too long in the hallway. But nothing prepared him for the kind of quiet Malik Turner operated in. Malik wasn't loud, didn't throw his weight around. He didn't need to. He was the kind of man who could make things happen without anyone realizing he was involved. His dreadlocks were pulled into a low ponytail, his glasses slightly crooked, but behind them was a mind sharper than barbed wire. "You think this is just about Detective Pike setting you up?" Malik said, sliding a worn chess piece across the library table. "It's not. Pike's part of a whole machine. Judges, cops, DAs, all feeding off the same trough." Marcus leaned in. "So how do I take him down?" Malik smirked faintly. "You don't. Not alone. But you can start by making yourself useful to me. Information for information." That's how it began. Marcus becoming Malik's ears and eyes in places Malik couldn't go. The laundry room, the yard, even the guard's lounge when he was sent to mop floors. In prison, you learned fast. Information was the most valuable currency. One night in the laundry, Marcus overheard 2 guards talking. "Pike's coming by again this weekend," one of them said. "Guess he's picking up his package." The other laughed. "Man's got the cleanest hands in the dirtiest business." Marcus didn't know what the package was, but Malik's eyes lit up when he heard about it. "That's your opening," Malik said. "We need eyes on Pike outside this place. I got someone who owes me." The someone turned out to be Malik's cousin, a quiet man named Andre who ran a phone repair shop on the outside. Malik managed to smuggle a coded message out through the prison mail. A harmless-looking letter about chess openings that was actually instructions for Andre to shadow Pike. Days turned into weeks. Marcus kept his head down, waiting. Then during lunch in the chow hall, a guard called out, "Hill! Mail!" It was a plain postcard of a city skyline. On the back, in tiny handwriting between the printed lines, were the words, "He meets at a warehouse on Bayview. Always at night. Same black SUV." Malik studied the card, his brow furrowed. Bayview, that's where the docks are. Smuggling, drugs, guns, you name it. Marcus's heart pounded. If they could tie Pike to something like that, maybe they could break his grip on the system. But Malik warned him, "We don't just hand this to the cops. Pike owns half of them. We build a net he can't slip through." That net would require more than just location details. They needed proof Pike was dirty, undeniable ironclad proof. And for that, Malik had a plan that would test Marcus's nerve to its breaking point. It started with the prison's IT room, a place Marcus had never been, but Malik had once worked in before his hacking arrest. On paper, Marcus had no reason to be there. In reality, Malik had bribed an inmate janitor to get Marcus assigned to clean it. The IT room was dim, lined with old desktop computers and server racks humming softly. While the guard on duty scrolled through his phone, Malik's instructions echoed in Marcus's head. Bottom left drawer. False back. Envelope marked Bayview. Take photos. Don't get caught. Marcus's hands shook as he found the drawer, slid out the false back, and saw the envelope. Inside were printed photos. Pike standing in the shadows at the docks, exchanging bags with men whose faces were partially covered. His pulse roared in his ears. He slipped the photos into a folded stack of laundry tickets in his pocket, praying the guard didn't notice. That night back in his cell, Marcus showed Malik. Malik's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. This is just the start. Now we connect him to the money. But before they could plan their next move, trouble came. 2 days later, Marcus was pulled from his bunk and dragged to solitary. No explanation, just cold metal cuffs and the slam of the heavy steel door behind him. He sat in the dark, the air thick and stale. It wasn't until hours later that a voice crackled through the food slot. "Pike says hello." Marcus froze. Pike knew. The light in solitary was dim, barely a flicker from the tiny bulb overhead. Marcus had lost track of time within hours. In here, the silence wasn't peaceful. It pressed on him, mixing with the steady drip of water somewhere in the darkness. Pike wanted him to break. That much was clear. Marcus sat on the cold concrete, knees to his chest, replaying the voice through the food slot. "Pike says hello." It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. Pike was letting Marcus know he could reach him anywhere, anytime, even behind prison walls. On the second day, the slot opened again, and a tray slid through. On it was a single piece of bread and a folded note tucked under it. He opened it carefully. "You're in over your head. Stop digging." No signature, but the slanted handwriting was unmistakable. Pike's. Marcus clenched the paper in his fist until it tore. Pike thought solitary would make him desperate, but all it did was feed the fire in his gut. If Pike was rattled enough to send warnings, it meant Marcus was closer to something dangerous. By the third day, Marcus heard footsteps outside his cell. They stopped, and a low voice spoke through the door. "You Marcus Hill?" Marcus hesitated. "Who's asking?" "The name's Victor Kane. Word is you've been poking the wrong bear." Marcus frowned. He'd heard that name before. Kane was a lifer, a man the guards didn't cross, the kind who had influence both inside and outside the prison. Rumors said Kane once ran security for half the docks before a high-profile hit landed him here. "What do you want?" Marcus asked cautiously. "I hear you got dirt on Pike. I hate that man more than I hate these walls." The footsteps moved closer to the slot. "You help me, I help you. Pike's been using those Bayview docks for years. I got people still out there. You want proof? I can get you more than photos. I can get you names." Marcus's pulse quickened. "And what do you want in return?" "Simple," Kane said. "When you get out, and you will, you make sure a certain letter finds its way to the right hands." Marcus didn't like owing favors, especially to a man like Kane, but this was bigger than his comfort zone. Deal. 2 days later, Marcus was released from solitary, supposedly for good behavior. He knew better. Pike wanted him back in general population, where he could be watched. That night during rec time, a guard slipped Marcus a rolled-up magazine. Inside was a small flash drive taped to the centerfold. Back in the library, Malik plugged it into one of the ancient computers. The files were explosive. Transaction records linking Pike to offshore accounts, coded shipping manifests that matched the Bayview warehouse activity, and surveillance photos that made the earlier ones look like child's play. Pike wasn't just corrupt. He was running an empire. Malik leaned back, exhaling slowly. "This is it. With this, we can bring him down. But," he glanced around the library, "if Pike catches wind, he'll have you buried before the trial even starts." Marcus's chest tightened. "So what's the move?" "We leak it," Malik said. "Not to the cops, to the press. A reporter who can't be bought." It sounded simple, but nothing in Eastwood was simple. They had to get the files out without triggering the prison's tight mail checks. That meant smuggling, and smuggling meant trusting someone on the outside. Marcus thought of the postcard Andre had sent. Andre can do it. He's clean, quiet, and nobody's watching him. Malik nodded. "Then it's settled. But you only get one shot at this. One mistake." He didn't have to finish the sentence. The handoff was set for Friday during visitation hours. Marcus would pass the flash drive to his mother, who'd hide it in a hollowed-out Bible. She'd give it to Andre, who'd deliver it to the reporter Malik trusted. Friday came, and the visit room buzzed with voices and the scrape of chairs. Marcus spotted his mother, her silver curls framing a face lined with worry, and felt the weight of the moment. They hugged, and as they sat, Marcus slid the Bible across the table. "For your prayers," he said softly. But before she could take it, a shadow fell over the table. Detective Pike stood in the doorway, wearing a smug smile. "Well, isn't this touching?" Pike said. "Family time." Marcus's stomach dropped. Pike's shadow loomed over the visitation table, his smile dripping with the kind of confidence that only came from years of getting away with everything. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, pulling out a chair without waiting for an answer. Marcus forced his expression to stay calm, but inside every nerve screamed. The Bible sat between him and his mother like a live grenade. Pike tapped it with 2 fingers. "Funny thing about book," he said. "Sometimes the good ones hide bad things inside." Marcus's mother looked between them, confused. "What's going on, Marcus?" Pike leaned closer. "Your son's about to make another mistake." For a split second, Marcus considered flipping the table and ending this here. But he saw Malik's face in his mind, heard his voice. One mistake, and it's over. So Marcus played the only card he had left. Deception. He slid the Bible toward Pike. "You're right," he said, his voice steady. "Better you take it before I do something stupid." Pike's eyes lit up in victory. He snatched the book, already imagining the evidence in his hands. What he didn't know was that the Bible was a decoy. Malik had swapped the flash drive the night before for one filled with harmless prison newsletters and sermon PDFs. The real drive? That had been sewn into the lining of Marcus's mother's purse during the hug. Marcus watched Pike stroll away, self-satisfied, carrying nothing but a useless prop. His mother, still shaken, asked, "Baby, what did you just do?" "I just let him think he won," Marcus said quietly. 3 days later, the Eastwood Gazette exploded with headlines. Detective Roland Pike linked to massive smuggling and corruption ring. The article was relentless. Transaction records, photos, witness statements, even a leaked audio recording, courtesy of Victor Kane's contacts, of Pike negotiating a deal at the Bayview docks. Within hours, state investigators swarmed Pike's office. By nightfall, he was in handcuffs, his face pale and tight, the cameras catching every second. In prison, news spread like wildfire. Inmates banged on cell bars, some cheering, some just smiling with quiet satisfaction. Malik simply walked past Marcus in the yard and murmured, "Told you it was bigger than you." The trial that followed was brutal. Pike's defense crumbled under the weight of evidence. One by one, people he thought were loyal flipped to save themselves. The jury deliberated for less than an hour before returning with the word Marcus had been waiting to hear for years. Guilty. Marcus's exoneration came 2 months later. The same judge who'd once sentenced him to a decade behind bars now signed the order for his release. The irony wasn't lost on him. When Marcus stepped out of Eastwood Correctional, the air felt different, lighter, cleaner. His mother was waiting, tears streaming down her face. Malik's cousin Andre stood beside her, giving Marcus a silent nod. Freedom didn't erase the years stolen from him. It didn't undo the nights staring at a concrete wall, the friendships made in shadows, or the knowledge of how deep corruption could run. But it gave him something he hadn't felt in a long time: control over his own life. Months later, Marcus stood at a podium in a small community center, speaking to a packed room. "They tried to break me," he told them. "They framed me, humiliated me, locked me away. But the truth is like water. You can dam it, you can block it, but eventually it finds a way out. And when it does, it washes everything in its path clean." The crowd erupted in applause. Somewhere in the back, Marcus thought he saw Victor Kane's name scrawled on a letter pinned to a bulletin board, the one he'd promised to deliver. Justice had been served, but Marcus knew the fight wasn't over. There were still others trapped in the same cage he'd escaped, and now he had a voice, one loud enough to rattle the very walls Pike had once built. Life lesson: even in the darkest corners of the system, truth can find its way to the light. But it takes courage, patience, and the will to keep pushing, even when the odds say you shouldn't. Marcus stepped down from the podium, the room still buzzing, his mother's proud smile meeting him at the door. Outside, the sun was high, and for the first time in years it belonged to him. Was justice truly served? Comment below, share your views, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more thrilling stories.